Hi, I'm Joel Wilson, and welcome to the Unknown Joys podcast. I think you'll agree that it's been a difficult year. Each of us needs moments of joy. Just listening to someone talk about the thing that triggers joy within them feels good. It might be snowboarding, a favorite item of clothing, a book, or their grandmother's homemade raspberry jam. In this episode of Unknown Joys, my conversation partner is James Pollard. Welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, I'm James. I live in Northfield with my wife Helen and my son Michael. I'm a Methodist local preacher, but my day job is doing something with data for a high street bank. And I'm really into film.
Do you remember the first film that you really loved?
That's a tricky one. The thing is, film wasn't a big thing for me when I was growing up. We didn't even have a video player. My dad refused to get one, so I didn't go to the cinema much. So we only got a video when I was like late teens. So bizarrely enough, the first film I remember watching over and over again when I first could do it was probably Life of Brian, Monty Python's Life of Brian. And I remember, pretty much wearing the tape out of that. I love the cinema. I mean, it still feels like a treat going to the cinema. Like just the journey out, the whole experience, getting the good seat, settling in, just making sure no one's talking, and just getting lost in that massive, epic space. I've got a little boy now as well, so getting out makes it hard. But if there's a film I really want to see, I'll try and see that in the cinema when it's out.
And is there actually a particular cinema that you gravitate towards, that you've got special memories or fondness for?
I like the Electric in Birmingham. I think they reckon it's the oldest working cinema in the UK. Small flip-up seats that you can get yourself a sofa. And seen a couple of classic films there. So I saw Singing in the Rain for the first time there on the big screen, which holds up surprisingly well.
Talk about just a few films that you think are your favorites now that you recommend to other people.
Generally favourite something like Lord of the Rings, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, extended editions. You can't really go wrong with if you've got the time. So, but people have probably seen them. So I wouldn't generally tend to recommend that, because what's the point? Everyone's watched that. So if you wanted me to recommend something, again, it would probably depend on your tolerance for, more difficult themes, shall we say. If you've got quite a high tolerance for that, so you can cope with something up to an 18 certificate, I'd say In Bruges is fantastic. It's very funny, a lot of bad language, so a little bit of a warning on that. It's a really interesting film because it does deal with guilt, themes of guilt and mistakes, and can someone put their life right if they've taken out a wrong turn early and things like that. And it'll flip on a dime between really serious scenes and, frankly, quite silly as well. It's black comedy, but in a strange way, also quite beautiful. So I'd always, In Bruges, that's up there. And recently, I've been discovering more and more Japanese animated films. Something like Your Name, I saw that at the Electric, which was amazing, until someone answered their phone during the emotional climax. It didn't just go off, they actually answered it. There's a film called Weathering with You, which is also a beautiful film, dealing with kind of coming of age stuff, but in a very strange way. Different sensibility coming over from Japan, but really accessible. Watch them subtitled, obviously, not dubbed. That's very important.
It is indeed. Oh, I love to hear someone say that. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to watching that Weathering with You. I watched the trailer and I was like, oh, that does look really wonderful and weird.
Well, when we could, I had to go up to Leeds a couple of days a week for work. So I nipped out and saw it one night when I was staying over there. And it's one of those films about halfway, 2/3 of the way through. It's like, I don't want this to stop. I don't care about the plot. I just like these people. I just want to spend time with these, Japanese people with their struggles and their humour and their playfulness. Oh, it was great.
Tell me a little bit about your favourite Marvel Cinematic Universe films.
Whew. So in terms of ones that I would just go back and watch again and again, you know what? Spider-Man Homecoming. I absolutely loved that one. Yeah, it was just bouncy. It was fresh. It's a bit more self-contained. Well, I say that he's got Iron Man all over it, but it feels really self-contained. It's got the humor in it, and it's got that brilliant. There's the brilliant scene in the car. I don't want to give too much away. But two people are having a conversation. It's not an action scene, but that's the scene where everything happens.
I'm getting goosebumps. You just mentioning it.
Yeah, when you can make two people talking really scary, that's when you know when a film's working.
There's different kinds of satisfaction you get with film, but can you talk about a film which has felt really satisfying as a viewing experience?
Right, Danny Boyle's Sunshine, but only in the cinema. The thing I love about film, it feels like it's a really modern art form. I mean, maybe gaming's starting to overtake it. I've never played computer games, but I can't really comment on that. But for me, it's like it's the pinnacle of modern art form, because it's the height of you get the best technology in there. You get the absolute best in set design. So there's all the physical craft. You get the sound, as well as all the acting and the music. And Danny Boyle's Sunshine on a big screen. We came out and I was like, did you hear that music and that sound? And she was like, did you see that light on the screen? And it was just a complete sensory overload that took you on a journey. Like everything came together to just built to a huge emotional climax. I've seen it on the small screen and it just doesn't work in the same way. There's the third act goes a little bit shonky. It doesn't quite end properly. But it didn't matter when you were in the room and everything was just kicking off and just building and building and building, and you can only really do that on a big screen. Blew me away.
I think that is a completely underrated film. I think that is a great choice. Tell me about a film, just a film experience where you had that sense of connection with someone else that you were watching it with, and that it was kind of, the experience was enhanced because you were watching it together.
Endgame, MCU Endgame, big film came out. My wife Helen and I, we can't get out of the cinema very often now. We've got a little lad, so something like that. What we'll often do is book a day off work. He's in nursery. We'll go to the Everyman cinema in town, make a day of it, maybe go for lunch, get the sofa together, and then just disappear into that film, like really comfortable, really nice experience. And and just share that as a kind of, it's time out for us and we're watching something that we love. And then also, and actually another thing is sometimes where you share with strangers. Like now I often find myself going to the cinema on my own more often, which is something I never would have done when I was younger. But I went to see a film called A Quiet Place, which is I'm not into horror. Horror is a very specific thing. You either are or you aren't. So A Quiet Place is sort of borderline, more monster movie. So I'm kind of okay with that. It's all about the tension rather than gore or anything like that. And the whole point of that film is everything's really quiet. And watching that with strangers who all just got into it, like proper pin drop. Everyone's holding their breath at the same time. Everyone's seeing the same trouble coming. Everyone's got the same tension. I didn't know any of these people. Was just amazing. You just felt that connection in the room. Not many films do that.
Tell you what, James, you gave me some really lovely answers there. Thank you very much again.
Well, thank you. You've been a great host.
Wow. When James described that cinema experience with strangers, did you relate to that? If you have something or someone that gives you joy and you'd like to talk about it on the podcast, or if you've got some feedback, drop us an email at contact@birminghammethodistcircuit.org.uk. You can find the podcast on Anchor and YouTube. Bye for now, and lean into the joy.